Okay, a multi-family home means any type of home that is attached and they're designed to be used by more than one household. Each one has its own private living unit. So think apartment, think condo, think townhouse. If you don't know what any of those things are, almost think hotel, but if you lived in it all the time, not just vacation. Okay. Um, First one is an apartment, and the only thing, well, only two things that make an apartment different from the next one we're going to talk about, which is a condo or condominium, is an apartment is rented, not owned by an individual, and also it's how do I say it? A single level. Like obviously in this picture, there's three levels to this building, but each of these levels is lived in by one family. So the family that lives like on this porch right here, they don't have stairs going up to a second or third level of their house. It's a single level living area. And then this porch belongs to a different family, and this porch belongs to a different family. So every porch you see in this picture belongs to a different family. Whoa. So that's the two differences. An apartment is rented. You pay month to month to rent this space, to rent this home. It's only one level. You never own it. Usually a company will own apartment buildings and you're paying the company your rent money to rent it each month. It's never owned by an individual. So a condo or condominium, same thing, is only slightly different because you can own an individual unit. You know, you buy this window right here, the home that's behind this window, or these three windows, depending on how big it is. Or it could be, these three are your condo, whatever. It doesn't have to be one story like an apartment, and it can be owned by an individual. However, sometimes with condos, there's common areas, like there might be a gym in there, there might be a pool, there might be a cookout area, a dog park. And so you are part owner of all the common areas that everybody who owns one of these units can have access to. So that's the two differences. Apartment, you do not own it, and it is one story each. Condo, you do own it, and it can be multiple levels each. It doesn't have to be. Sometimes, this is not always true, but looking at these pictures might make you think of this. Sometimes condos are a little nicer than apartments because they are going to be bought and owned forever, whereas apartments are not always as nicely finished because the company that owns them knows that people are going to be moving in and out of them a lot, and therefore they're not going to be taken care of as well because that's just a lot of different people coming through them. So why would they spend a lot of money to put really, really nice things in them when they're going to get tore up easier? So that is sometimes a difference. The last one that we are doing for multifamily homes is a townhouse, and it is more like a house than the other two. It's individual multi-level houses that share 1 to 2 common walls, and it is owned. So instead of, let's look here, this apartment, just on the front side of this apartment, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I can see at least 15 units in this building. And this townhouse, this one townhouse right here, there is 1, 2, 3 units in it. Just 3 compared to like the 15. And each one of these is 2 levels. You can see that there are 2 levels right here. They are always 2 stories. Otherwise, they're not called a townhouse. They're called a duplex or a fourplex, which we don't have to learn. But They share a wall in between, like right here. You can see that there's a wall shared. Well, it might be right here. No, it's gonna be right here. This is where the wall would be shared. Between this little window and this big window is where the wall is that splits the two apartments, my goodness, townhouses, because that's what they have in common. Um, so that's what a townhouse is. So it's a little more like living in a house, but not as congested as an apartment or a condo. So if you're like at a point in your life where you're like, well, I kind of like living in an apartment and the simplicity of an apartment, but I kind of want a house, but I'm not sure if I'm ready, then a townhouse might be the answer. A benefit of all three of these types of multifamily homes are that you don't really have a lot of, or if any, yard work. Um, if you rent, like with the apartment, you just call the office and say, "Hey, my oven broke," and they send someone out to fix it, and you don't have to pay for it because that's included in your rent. But if you own a condo or you own a townhouse, you don't have anybody to call and say, "Hey, my oven broke." I mean, I don't know who you would call, but whoever you decided to call, they'd just be like, "So you own it, fix it." So that's something that comes with owning things. But if we think about the long run of life, usually people stay in homes for extended periods of time, and so you get more for your money when you buy something, when you own it, rather than renting it. So let's do a little just calculation, just out loud. So let's say you pay $800 a month for rent. Um, and so 800 times 12, because there's 12 months in a year, you're paying $9,600 a year to rent an apartment. All right. So a mortgage, for example, which is basically what the rent is, what you pay monthly to own a house, is they last for 30 years. So let's say you pay this $9,600 for 30 years. That equals $288,000 that you have paid over 30 years to rent an apartment. And after 30 years, you don't own a thing, nothing. You have lived in someone else's building. You have paid them almost $300,000 over 30 years to live in their space, where you could have bought a townhouse or a condo or a whole single family home for that much money and owned the thing. That means you could have sold it for just as much money and put all of that in your pocket and come out to zero. So that's the benefits of buying versus renting. However, if you have a lifestyle where, let's say you're a travel nurse, or you don't have kids and a partner and you can just travel and city hop all the time because you do something cool and extravagant like that for a job. Wouldn't that be cool? Um, then it may never make sense financially for you to buy a house because you would never be there long enough to make your money back on it. And you'd have to sell and buy and sell and buy and sell and buy. And if you do that much, you're going to actually lose money. It's going to be a pain in the butt. So if you have that kind of lifestyle, renting actually makes more sense for you. If you maybe move to a new area, if you just up and packed up and moved to Chicago, well, maybe you didn't want to buy a house right off the bat because you didn't know what area you wanted to live in. So maybe you rent for like 6 months while you figure it out. And then you buy a house. So renting is good for like short-term stuff like that. Like you're there temporarily until you figure out exactly where you want to live, or you're there temporarily if you're just going to do a job for like 6 months and then you're going to come back to where you came from, or you just want to try your job out and make sure you're going to like it, to make sure you're going to stay in that area before you buy a whole house. So there is benefits of renting for certain lifestyles, but the vast majority of it is a negative for renting. Other things in your life, you're going to rent during like college, you'll rent an apartment. When you first graduate high school or you first move out of your parents' house, whatever comes first, you will probably rent for a little while because you don't either don't have the credit to buy something or you don't know where you want to buy or you want the simple lifestyle of living in an apartment and being able to call the office and saying, "Hey, my oven's broken," and they do it for you. Because in some aspects that can be cheaper than having to fix your own things.